Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah shiur. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph and we will be learning today Mitzvah Hashem Daf Yud Beis Amid Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchas netillas yadayim. We have begun to learn about the brachas of Asher Yatzar and Elokai Neshama. And interestingly enough, today in Siman Vav Sif Beis, we're going to take a little bit of a detour and go back to the topic of Siman Dalid, which was the basic halachas of netillas yadayim. And specifically today, we're going to spend time speaking about when the proper time to make the bracha of al netillas yadayim is. And it's a very complex question that has a lot of different facets to it, how we're going to go about answering that question. And we're going to see several differences of opinion. But before we tackle it actually inside, once again, we have to give a little bit of background and reiterate some of the things that we've spoken about already at great length. Let's remember the basic machlokes of the Rosh and the Rashba. Why do we wash the netillas yadayim in the morning? According to the Rosh, we wash the netillas yadayim because while we sleep, yadayim askaniyos heim. Our hands are by nature busy, and it's very possible, as a matter of fact, the Mishnah Berurah's words were, efsher, it's inevitable that our hands touched parts of our bodies that are unclean, amaka mechusa, unless you slept clothed in such a manner that that would be highly unlikely. But if you either slept unclothed or partially unclothed, or you were wearing very open and very loose-fitting pajamas, so then inevitably the feeling is that you must have touched a part of your body which we would consider a makkah mechusa, an unclean area, and therefore the Rosh says when you get up in the morning, you have to wash your hands before you could go to Kriya Shema and Tefillah, because your hands are unclean. And that washing is a mitzvah, because it's preparatory to Kabbalas al Malchus Shemayim and Tefillah, and therefore Chazal will masakin a bracha on that washing. Then we have the Rashba. The sheet of the Rashba is that when we awaken in the morning, we are nasa kibriya chadasha. The Rabbanan Shalom renews and refreshes us, like the pasuk in Eicha, chadashim labikarim rabba emunasecha. We wash our hands like a kohen who's coming to the Beis Hamikdash to do the avodah has to wash his hands from the kiyar before he could do the avodah. So too, before we embark on another day of avodas Hashem, the Chazal will misakin that we wash our hands and we make a bracha on that washing, and it's all part and parcel of thanking the Rabbeinu Shalom for Chastei Hashem ki lo samnu ki lo chalu rachamav chadashim labekarim rabba emunasecha. And we have even said, and this is going to come into play once again today, that according to the Rashba, the bracha of al netillas yadayim is almost more of a berachas hoidah than it is a berachas hamitzvahs. And therefore we're going to see that this bracha is properly recited alongside the other berachas hashachar, because it's part and parcel of thanking the Rabbeinu Shalom for renewing and reinvigorating us for a new day of avodas Hashem. Now the question becomes, when precisely should we wash the netillas yadayim? So let's, before we even go inside, let's do a basic analysis of this question. Whenever you make a bracha on a mitzvah, you make the bracha very close to the kiyam ha-mitzvah. Now usually, when you make a bracha on a mitzvah, the rule of thumb is that you make the bracha over la'asiyasam. You make the bracha before the kiyam ha-mitzvah. Thus, when you put on tefillin in the morning, before you tighten the tefillin, that's when you make the bracha of Asher Kedishadu b'mitzvaysav etzivadu l'hanyach tefillin. When you take a lulav and esrig, before you fulfill the mitzvah, you might pick up the lulav and esrig first, but remember, we hold the esrig upside down because we don't want to fulfill the mitzvah before we make the bracha. So we bring the bracha as close to the act, as close to the Maisa mitzvah as possible. We pick up the lulav and esrog with the esrog upside down. We make the bracha, and then we flip it upside down. Now, by netillas yadayim, we can't really make the bracha over la'asiyasam, because again, according to the Rosh, The whole reason you're making the bracha, the whole reason you're washing your hands is because your hands are unclean. If your hands are unclean, you cannot make a bracha. So you can't make the bracha over l'asiyasa. So according to the Rush, it would seem that the most preferential approach would be wash your hands. Now your hands are clean. And now immediately make the bracha on the netillas yadayim, as close to the Ma'aseh Mitzvah as possible. But you have to do it after you wash your hands because you simply can't do it before you wash your hands. That's according to the Rush. How about according to the Rashba? According to the Rashba, it would also seem you should make the bracha preferentially as close to the Kiyam HaMitzvah as possible. Now, it's possible that according to the Rashba, you really could make the bracha over l'asiyasa. Maybe you could really make the bracha before you wash your hands, right? The Rashba doesn't seem to be concerned with the Rush's problem of yadayim mitunafais. That's not the svara that the Rashba said to explain the need for netillas yadayim. But we are chayshish for the Rush. Matter of fact, it would seem from most achronim that really, me'ikar adin, we paskin more like the Rush than the Rashba. We just make adjustments to what we do to take the Rashba into account. But it would seem that the psak follows more closely the Rush than the Rashba. So again, we're not going to make the bracha over l'asiyasan because we're worried about yadayim and tunafis. But according to the Rashba, at first glance, it would also seem that really we should make the bracha as close to the Kiyam HaMitzvah as possible. However, in the Beis Yosef throws out a very interesting svara. And the Beis Yosef says that according to the Rashba, there doesn't seem to really be a great problem of waiting between the washing and the actual making the bracha of the netillas yadayim, as long as you're reciting the al netillas yadayim together with the other berachas hashachar. If you combine the bracha of al netillas yadayim together with the other berachas hashachar, well, says the Beis Yosef, that makes sense. Because according to the Rashba, again, what is the whole act of netillas yadayim and what is the bracha of al netillas yadayim? It's a berachas haidah thanking the Ribbono Shel Olam for the chadashim labekarim rabba emunasecha. In that case, it definitely belongs together with the rest of the berachas hashachar. So even if there's a delay between the washing of netillas yadayim and the recitation of the bracha, as long as you're reciting the bracha together with the rest of the berachas hashachar, says the Beis Yosef, it makes sense. And according to the Rashba, that delay would be of no consequence. According to the Rashba, that delay would not be problematic. Okay. Now, how about according to the Rush? According to the Rush, is a delay problematic? Well, yeah. According to the Rush, a delay is problematic for two reasons. First of all, we have the basic reason that we opened up the shiur with, and that is, typically speaking, you don't make a delay between the Kiyam HaMitzvah and the making of the bracha. When you're Mekayim HaMitzvah, that's the time to make the bracha on it. You're not Mekayim HaMitzvah, wait for an hour and make the bracha later. That would seem to be very strange. But there's also another, much more basic problem with having a delay between the washing and the bracha. And what is that problem? Well, if you delay, why are you going to delay? So the Mechaber is going to discuss a minig Ashkenaz, which was that they would wash their hands in the morning, but they would not make the bracha of al netillas yadayim right away. Instead, they would wait to make the bracha of al netillas yadayim and the bracha of asher yotzar, if someone used the facilities, until they came to shul. And when they came to shul and they started davening, they would make the al netillas yadayim and the asher yotzar then. Why would they do that? Well, one of the reasons that's brought down is there was a time when you had a lot of people that were not bikiyim bebrachas. They were not educated enough to make brachas on their own. And therefore, it was very common to have people in shul who needed somebody else to be mitzi them in the making of the brachas. Therefore, somebody would wait to make the brachas until he came to shul. That way, if somebody needs somebody to be mitzi them, he could be mitzi them in the brachas. And certainly the people who didn't know how to make the brachas, they certainly had to wait because they had to come to shul and find somebody who could be mitzi them. So it's brought down that this was one possible reason why people would wait and they would make the brachas when they came to shul. Now, there's a very, very, very powerful potential drawback, according to the Rush, to wake up in the morning, wash your hands, wait till you go to shul, and make the brachas then? What is that potential drawback? What if we're not talking about a 5-minute delay? What if we're not talking about a 15-minute delay? What if we're speaking about an hour delay? Okay, what's the problem? Tell you what the problem is. You wake up in the morning, and according to the Rosh, you wash your hands. Why? Because yadayim askani yoseim, and your hands are unclean. And why do you have to wash your hands? In preparation for Kriya Shema and for Tefillah. So you get up, you wash the netillas yadayim, you prepare your hands for Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim and for Tefillah. Then an hour later, you're actually ready to daven. Now maybe during that hour, maybe you need to use the facilities again now, before davening. Or maybe you touched a makom mechusa on your body during that hour. Maybe you got an itch and you scratched yourself in a makom mechusa. Ooh, wait a second. Now you have a problem. Now it turns out that the netillas yadayim that you did in the morning was actually not a netillas yadayim that you're going to make a bracha on. So now you would have to wash a new netillas yadayim, and you would be making a netillas yadayim on that washing, not on the first washing. Right? So again, you washed your hands in the morning, and now you have a delay. So according to the Rosh, that could be a little bit problematic, because now the bracha is not going on the first washing. The bracha is going to have to go on the second washing. Now, actually, the way I'm thinking about it now, really the problem is more the other way. The problem is if you get up and you wash, sorry, I misstated that a little bit. Here's the problem. The problem is that if you get up and you make a bracha right away when you wash the netillas yadayim, and then you delay, and now you're going to need the Beis HaKisei before you daven, or you touch a makom mechusa on your body before you daven, it comes out that the bracha that you made earlier was a bracha of HaTorah. So the problem, according to the Rosh, is the other way. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I have to restate this now, but I hope you're following me. Again, the question is, when are you going to make the bracha? So to make the bracha right away when you get up, we said that would usually seem to be the more preferential way to do things. But according to the Rosh, if you're going to have a delay between when you wash the netillas yadayim when you get up in the morning and when you actually go to daven, then if you make the bracha right away in the morning when you wash the netillas yadayim, you're putting yourself at risk for a bracha of HaTorah. Because what happens if you get up in the morning, wash the netillas yadayim, make the bracha of al netillas yadayim, then you wait an hour until go daven. And now you have to use the Beis HaKisei again. Or now you touch a makom mechusa. Now it turns out that the bracha that you made an hour ago was actually a bracha of HaTorah, because that bracha did not prepare you for Kriya Shema and Tefillah. Because between when you made that netillas yadayim and made the bracha of al netillas yadayim, and when you actually went to go say Kriya Shema and daven, you had to wash your hands a second time. So that netillas yadayim in the morning, right when you got up, was ineffective. And you made a bracha al netillas yadayim on an ineffective washing. So that was a bracha of HaTorah. So that would be a powerful reason, according to the Rosh, that you actually should wait to make the bracha until you come to shul. So again, on the one hand, we have a strong svara to make the bracha right when you wash the netillas yadayim in the morning, because we want to make the bracha right when you do the mitzvah. So you got up in the morning, you washed the netillas yadayim, make the bracha. But according to the Rosh, what happens if you know that you're not going to wash the netillas yadayim, you're not going to daven for another hour? If you got up in the morning and you're going to go to the daf yomi first, and you know that you're not going to daven for another hour, then how could you make the bracha right when you wash on the netillas yadayim? Maybe you're going to need another washing yet before you actually daven, because you're going to a daf yomi and you're drinking a coffee before you're davening. So by the time the Daf Yomi shiur is over, it's very possible you're gonna use the basic kisei again. And according to the Rosh, you're gonna have to wash another netillas yadayim in preparation for Kriya Shema and Tefillah. But you already washed once in the morning and you made a berachah. That berachah, according to the Rosh, l'chayra, is now a berachah of HaTorah. So we have over here what we have to balance when we discuss when should we make the berachah. Should we make the berachah first thing in the morning, right when we wash the netillas yadayim, to bring the berachah together with the mitzvah? Or perhaps, if we know that there's going to be a significant delay until we actually go to daven, maybe we should not make the bracha until we're ready to go to daven. Because if we make the bracha first thing in the morning, we're putting ourselves at risk. Maybe we're going to need a second netillas yadayim, according to the Rosh, in which case the first bracha that we made on the first netillas yadayim was invalid. According to the Rashba, we don't seem to have a problem, because according to the Rashba, according to the Beis Yosef's Pirush, there doesn't seem to be a problem to delay making the bracha of al netillas yadayim until later. But according to the Rosh, there is a problem of delaying it, because why are you having such a great hefsek between the kiyum of the mitzvah and making of the bracha? I hope you follow that, especially since I misspoke a little bit in the beginning. But now we're going to see this inside, and I'll explain it as we go along. So let's take a look here at Yud Aleph Amud Beis, 2 lines off the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Vav Sif Beis. Says the Mechaber, Yesh nagin lahamtin levarech al netillas yadayim ad bayom lebeis hakneses. There are those, and in the berachah this is brought down from a kolbay, there are those who had the minig, and in the Paiskim they call this the minig Ashkenaz. There are those that had the minig to delay making the bracha of al netillas yadayim until they came to the Beis HaKnesses, until they came to shul to daven, u'misadrin oisai im shar habrachas, and then they recited al netillas yadayim together with the other berachas hashachar, u'bnei Svarad lo noagu kein. But the bnei Svarad were not noyeg to have this delay. Now, in the previous shiur, we already read this, and we already did Mishnah Berurah ois katan ches. So I'm just going to paraphrase what Mishnah Berurah ois katan ches said. Mishnah Berurah ois katan ches said, even according to this yesh noyagin, even according to this minig Ashkenaz that they had to delay, the Mishnah Berurah says, well, that's only if it was going to be a short delay. But if it's going to be a significant delay, like the Mishnah Berurah said, im loimid akar hanetila, if you're going to a Daf Yomi shiur for an hour before you daven, then the Mishnah Berurah said, l'kulei alma le'ovid shaper. Everybody would agree that if you're going to have a significant delay between when you wash al netillas yadayim and until you finally go ahead and make the bracha, that, the Mishnah Berurah says, nobody would agree to that. Why? The yesh hefsek gadol bein netila lebracha. Because then you're having a hefsek gadol between the washing and the actual bracha. So the Mishnah Berurah over here at Ois Katan Ches says, yes, there was a yesh nayagin that said that you could delay between when you actually wash the netillas yadayim and when you go to shul and make the brachas when you go to shul. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Ches, that's only if it's going to be a short delay. Not if it's going to be a long delay. If it's going to be a long delay, then he says, Kulei alma le'ovid shaper. Everybody would agree that it is not appropriate to have such a long delay between the washing of al netillas yadayim and the recitation of the bracha. That's what he says in Ois Katan Ches. But now let's take a look on Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph in Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Tes. Remember, the Mechaber said, B'nei Sfarad lo noagu kein. The B'nei Sfarad were not noyeg to have a delay. They were noyeg that as soon as you washed netillas yadayim, right away you made the bracha of Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al netillas yadayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'haskamas ha'achrayim linoy ka'anshei Sfarad. The consensus among the achrayim is to be noyeg like the Anshe Svarad, shaloi lahafsik lechatchila ben berachas al netillas yadayim v'hanetila. That you should not have a hefsik between the washing of netillas yadayim and the recitation of the bracha. Ella, rather, miyad shenoitel yadav, immediately upon washing your hands, tzarich levarach al netillas yadayim, you should make the bracha of al netillas yadayim. Now, the Mishnah Berurah right away is going to put in a couple of caveats. However, in be'eshen noitel yadav hu tzarich linekavav. However, let's say when you wash the netillas yadayim, you have the need to use the facilities. So let's put this into very practical terms. Let's say you're one of those people who has a negavasa shissel next to your bed. You wash the netillas yadayim right by your bed. You wake up in the morning, you sit up, you go, you take the negavasa cup, and you wash negavasa into your negavasa shissel. Well, generally speaking, when people wake up in the morning, they have the need to use the berachah. So you could wash, but you can't make the bracha. So very nice that the Mishnah Berurah just said that the consensus of the Achrayim is like the Anshe Sfarad, that we don't make a hefsek between the washing and making the bracha. However, says the Mishnah Berurah, if you're like 99% of the world, and when you wake up in the morning, right away you feel the need to use the facilities, so you can't wash and make a bracha. Because like the Mishnah Berurah says, afilu b'divrei Torah aser. At that point, it's not only you're not allowed to make a bracha, you're not even allowed to learn Torah. You're not even allowed, you have to wash your hands, you have to go use the facilities before you can do anything else. And even if you'll say, well, I need to use the facilities, but I could hold myself back for 72 minutes, still, you still can't make a bracha of al netillas yadayim until you use the facilities. So again, what did the Mishnah Berurah say here so far in Ois Katan Tes? He said the consensus of the Achrayim is like the Anshe Sfarad. You should not delay between the washing of netillas yadayim and the recitation of the bracha on netillas yadayim. However, if when you wake up you have the need to use the facilities, you cannot make the bracha on netillas yadayim right now. You're puzzle for a bracha. You're even puzzle for divrei Torah. And even if you could really restrain yourself for 72 minutes. And he brings down over here, V'ayin l'kaman b'simin tzadik beis, sif aleph b'haga uve Mishnah Berurah sham, where he brings down the Shari Tshuva over there, who says that even if you could restrain yourself for 72 minutes, you're still not allowed to make a bracha if you have the need to use the facilities. So, okay, so then what do? So, till this point in the Mishnah Berurah, in Ois Katan Tes, what the Mishnah Berurah is suggesting is, if you wake up in the morning and you wash the netillas yadayim, but you have the need to use the facilities, so what you do is, if your negavasa shissel is next to your bed, you wash negavasa, you go to the Beis HaKisei, you use the Beis HaKisei, you wash your hands again when you finish with the Beis HaKisei, not 3 times, but a basic washing of the hands for cleanliness. Then you come out and you make an al netillas yadayim and an asher yotzar. So the only delay that you had between the washing of negavaser and the recitation of the bracha of al netillas yadayim was the necessary delay to use the facilities so that you should be allowed to make that bracha. So let's follow the paper trail over here. Let's not lose track. So far we had like this. We had at the beginning of Sif Beis, we have this minig Ashkenaz to delay making the bracha of al netillas yadayim until you go to shul. We explained what's the possible reason for that delay, because there are people in shul who need somebody to be moitzi them in the bracha. So there's a yesh noyagin, there's a kolbay, there's a minig Ashkenaz. Don't make the bracha right away at home when you wash netillas yadayim. Instead, delay until you go to shul. We had a Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Ches on Yud Aleph Amud Beis who said that's only if there's going to be a short delay. What does that mean? That means you're going to shul immediately. You're getting up, you're washing negavasi, you're getting dressed, you're going to shul. If it's going to be a short delay, then yes, there's a yesh dayan to delay till you go to shul. But if it's going to be a long delay, if it's going to be a hefsek gadol, then the Mishnah Berurah said no, l'kulei alma, it's inappropriate to have a hefsek gadol. Over here in Ois Katan Tes, the Mishnah Berurah tells me, what is the consensus of the Achrayim? The consensus of the Achrayim is like the Anshe Sfarad, do not delay until you go to shul. Rather, wash the netillas yadayim immediately. However, what does immediately mean? Immediately means immediately when you're allowed to make the bracha, meaning that you don't need to use the facilities. If you need to use the facilities, so use the facilities first and make the bracha second. On a practical level, I'll give you two scenarios. Scenario number one, somebody wakes up, he has a negavasa shissel next to his bed. He's going to wake up, wash the negavasa, get up, go to the Beis HaKisei, use the Beis HaKisei, wash his hands again, come out, make a bracha of al netillas yadayim and asher. And perhaps a l'kain neshama too, but we'll get to that later. Scenario number two, you don't have a negavasa shissel next to your bed. Okay, so you're going to get up, go to the Beis HaKisei. You're relying on the shita that holds that the entire household is like a dalet amos, and not the entire household, but at least the entire room is one dalet amos, and maybe you have a master bath, so it's considered part of your room. So you go into the Beis HaKisei, you wash the netillas yadayim, negavasa in the Beis HaKisei, then you use the facilities, then you wash your hands again, then you come out, you make al netillas yadayim and asher yotzar. That's what we have so far over here in Ois Katan Tes. But now let's go further in Ois Katan Tes. Vayin le'el b'siman daled b'Mishnah Berurah, but the Mishnah Berurah reminds us of something that we learned earlier in Siman daled. Shekasavnu sham b'shem HaChai Adam, where it says the Chavetz Chaim, I wrote over there in the name of the Chai Adam, Shalachatchila yoser toiv lahamtin milavarach al netillas yadayim, that it is better to delay to make the bracha of al netillas yadayim ad la'achar shemenaka atzmai v'roitza lehispalel, until you clean your hands and you are ready to daven, not ready to go to the daf yomi shir, ready to daven. Da'oz yoytze l'kulei alma, because then says the Chai Adam, you're yoytze l'kulei alma. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. That according to the Bir Halacha said that according to this Chai Adam, if you're going to delay making the al netillas yadayim, you should combine it with the rest of the berachas hashachar. And that's what the Chai Adam means when he says yoytze l'kulei alma. That was a mouthful. Let me tell you what this Chai Adam means. What did he just quote from the Chai Adam? He quoted from the Chai Adam that it is toiv lahamtin milavarach al netillas yadayim. It is better to wait and make the bracha on the netillas yadayim ad la'achar shemenaka atzmai v'roitza lehispalel. It's better to wait to make the bracha on the netillas yadayim until your hands are clean and you're ready to daven. Da'az yoytze l'kulei alma, because then you're yoytze l'kulei alma, meaning the Rosh and the Rashba. What the Chai Adam says is like this. The Chai Adam is talking about the problem that we had in the beginning of the shiur. The Chai Adam is very worried. If you're going to get up and you're going to make an al netillas yadayim immediately after you washed your hands, and then you're not ready yet to daven, instead you're going to go to a daf yomi shir, says the Chai Adam, according to the Rosh, you're putting yourself at risk for a bracha levatala. Because you're going to make a bracha of al netillas yadayim right after you wash the netillas yadayim, like the Mishnah Berurah laid out at the beginning of Ois Katan Tes. The Mishnah Berurah said at the beginning of Ois Katan Tes, what is the haskamas achronim? The haskamas achronim is to do like the Anshe Sfarad. The consensus amongst the achronim is wash your hands and make the bracha right away. If you have to use the facilities first, fine. Use the facilities first. But then right away make it al netillas yadayim and asher yotzar. Says the Mishnah Berurah now in the name of the Chai Adam, but if you're going to have a delay between when you're washing the netillas yadayim and you're ready to daven, then you have a different problem. Then how could you make the bracha on netillas yadayim right after you wash the netillas yadayim? You know that you're not going to daven for another hour or an hour and 15 minutes. You're washing the netillas yadayim. Then you're going downstairs and you're having a coffee. Then you're getting in your car and you're going to shul. Then you're sitting down to a 45-minute daf yomi shir. then, then it's going to be another 5-10 minutes until you daven. It's very likely that you're going to use the Beis HaKisei again. Or it's very likely that you're going to scratch your head. Or it's very likely that you're going to scratch your neck under the collar of your shirt. And you touch the makom mechusa. So now, according to the Rosh, you have to wash the netillas yadayim again in preparation of Kriya Shema and Tefillah. If so, the earlier netillas yadayim you did when you woke up was ineffective. And you made a bracha on that ineffective washing. So that's a bracha of HaTorah. Therefore, says the Chai Adam, what should you do instead? What you should do is, you should delay making the al netillas yadayim. Get up, wash the netillas yadayim, do not make a bracha. Have your coffee, go to the daf yomi shir. After the daf yomi shir, go use the Beis HaKisei again, and then make your al netillas yadayim. Now, you're 100% yoitza according to the Rosh, because you just used the Beis HaKisei, you came out, you have yadayim and tunafos, you have unclean hands, and you washed them in preparation for davening. According to the Rashba, you make it on netillas yadayim again. According to the Rashba, the bracha that you make on netillas yadayim now, combined with the rest of the berachas hashachar, could even go back on the netillas yadayim that you washed right when you woke up. Because remember, the Beis Yosef said that according to the Rashba, you could delay making the al netillas yadayim until you make the rest of the berachas hashachar. So that's why the Chai Adam says, better if you know you're going to have a delay between when you wash the netillas yadayim right away in the morning and when you daven, then you should delay making the al netillas yadayim. So, if I want to summarize, I know this is complex. If I want to summarize what I see from the beginning of Sif Beis until after Ois Cotton Tess in the Mishnah Berurah, what I would say is like this. The Mechaber brought down two minhagim. The Mechaber brought down a minig Ashkenaz and a minig Sfarad. The minig Ashkenaz was delay making the al netillas yadayim until you go to shul. The minig Anshe Sfarad was do not delay. Make the bracha right away when you get up. The Mishnah Berurah in Ois Cotton Ches explains very succinctly these two minhagim, the minig Ashkenaz and the minig Anshe Sfarad, are really talking about one particular case. The case that those two minhagim apply to is somebody who gets up in the morning, washes the netillas yadayim, and now intends to immediately go to shul and daven. The difference between the two minhagim is, according to the minig Ashkenaz, they said, you got up, you washed netillas yadayim, you're not going to have a significant delay now, you're just going to shul to go daven. Says the Kolbai, says the minig Ashkenaz, don't make the bracha immediately when you wash the netillas yadayim. There may be people in shul who need you to be mitzi them in the bracha. So have a short little delay, go to shul, you're ready to go daven. The odds that you're going to have to use the Beis HaKisei again are very slim. You got up, you used the facility, you washed the netillas yadayim, you used the facilities, you're going straight to shul to daven. So you're not at risk of a bracha of HaTorah according to the Rosh in this scenario. So we want you to have a short delay before you make the netillas yadayim in case somebody else in shul needs you to be mitzi them in the bracha. That's the minig Ashkenaz. Says the Mechaber, the Anshe Sfarad loy noagu kain. The Anshe Sfarad were not noeg like that. Why? Very simple. Because the Anshe Sfarad said, we don't want a delay between the Maisa Mitzvah and the bracha. People in shul, okay, people in shul will have to figure it out. Maybe they weren't choshish for that. Maybe they felt it's not such a big problem. Maybe they felt it's not so common. Maybe they felt I'm not bekiin. Most people are baki and making brachas. But the Anshe Sfarad said no. Get up in the morning, wash the netillas yadayim right away. That was the Mechaber, and that was Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Ches. Now in Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Tes, the Mishnah Berurah said, guess what? The consensus of the Achronim is, like the Anshe Sfarad, if you're going to get up in the morning, and you're going to wash the netillas yadayim, and you're going to go straight to shul to daven, make the bracha right away after you wash the netillas yadayim. But then, in Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Tes, the Mishnah Berurah now addresses a different scenario. What if you know that you're going to have a significant delay between when you washed netillas yadayim and when you go to daven? If you know that there's going to be a significant delay because you're going to go to the daf yomi shir, then he brings down the Chai Adam who says, now you have a little bit of a problem. You know why you have a problem? Because how could I tell you that you should go ahead and you should make the bracha right when you wash the netillas yadayim in the morning when you get up, if there's a very good chance that you're going to need the berachah again an hour later before you daven? That puts you at risk for a bracha of HaTorah according to the Rosh. Therefore, says the Chai Adam, in that scenario, when you know you're going to have that long delay between the netillas yadayim that you washed in the morning and when you actually go daven, in that scenario, says the Chai Adam, wait until you use the berachah a second time right before davening, wash then, and make the bracha then together with the other berachas hashachar. That way you're safe according to the Rosh, because the bracha goes on the second washing that you did, after you use the berachah for a second time, right before davening. And according to the Rashba, it can even go back on the first washing that you did. And you're saying the netillas yadayim with the rest of the berachas hashachar, so it's the berachas haidah. That's the Chai Adam. Now, interesting that in Ois Katan Ches, the Mishnah Berurah did say that if you're going to have a lengthy break between netillas yadayim and when you make the bracha, right? He said, and one of the cases he gave was im loimed akar netila. If you're going to go to daf yomi shir, if you're going to learn Torah after netillas yadayim, and then you're going to have a long hefsek, he said l'kulei alma lo yavet chapter. According to everybody, it wouldn't be right to delay making the bracha. But over here in Ois Katan Tes, he says that that's exactly what the Chai Adam suggests. The Chai Adam suggests, yes, you should delay. But the reason the Chai Adam is suggesting that, here's the difference between Ois Katan Ches and Ois Katan Tes. Again, at face value, if you follow what I'm telling you, there seems to be a little bit of a stira between Ois Katan Ches and Ois Katan Tes. In Ois Katan Ches, the Mishnah Berurah says very clearly, Im loimed akar hanetila. If you're going to have a seder of learning Torah after you wash the netillas yadayim in the morning, right? Va'akar zeh hoyluk lebeis hakneses, and then you're going to go to shul umevarek shama the netillas yadayim lekulay alma lo yavet chapter. Everybody would agree that that's not right to make such a long hefsek between washing the netillas yadayim and making the bracha. So Ois Katan Ches, you're going to get up in the morning, you're going to wash the egelvasser, then you're going to go to the daf yomi shir, and then an hour and a half later you're going to make the bracha on the netillas yadayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah l'kulei alma, that's a bad idea. That's what he seems to say in Ois Katan Ches. Then in Ois Katan Tes, he brings down the Chai Adam. The Chai Adam says, get up in the morning, wash the netillas yadayim, go to a daf yomi shir, daven an hour and a half later. Guess what? You should make the bracha on the netillas yadayim an hour and a half later. What? Isn't that a stira between Ois Katan Ches and Ois Katan Tes? The answer is no, it's not a stira. The reason it's not a stira is because in Ois Katan Ches, what the Mishnah Berurah is talking about is somebody who washes the netillas yadayim in the morning, goes to a daf yomi shir, and then after the daf yomi shir, he makes an al netillas yadayim on the first washing. He doesn't use the berachah again. He doesn't have a second netillas yadayim. He's waiting an hour and a half, and he's making a bracha of al netillas yadayim on a washing that he did an hour and a half ago. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says in Ois Katan Ches is l'kulei alma lo yavet chapter. Everybody would agree that that's wrong. That's not what the Chai Adam is talking about. The Chai Adam is talking about somebody gets up, washes the netillas yadayim, goes to a daf yomi shir. Now an hour and a half later, he uses the facilities again, and he washes another netillas yadayim right before davening. That's fine, according to everybody. It works according to the Rosh. It works according to the Rashba. So that is a beautiful eitzah. Now, just to sum all of this up, let's read the words of the Ramah here on Yud Beis Amud Aleph. Haga, v'al kol panim lo yavar shtei pamim. First of all, obviously you can't make two al netillas yadayims. Don't make one al netillas yadayim at home when you washed on netillas yadayim, then go to shul, open up your siddur, start saying berachas hashakar, and make another al netillas yadayim because it's printed in the siddur of berachas hashakar. Umisha mavarcha beveisa, if you made a bracha at home, lo yavarcha beveis hakneses, don't make the bracha in shul. V'chein misha mavarcha beveis hakneses, and if you're going to make the bracha in shul, lo yavarcha beveisa, don't make a bracha at home. Now says the Ramah, somebody who's going to go to a daf yomi shiur before he goes to shul to daven, or he's gonna say some other tefillas like slichas or something before he davens shachris. Yevarcha beveisai, he should make the al netillas yadayim in his house. V'lo yevarach beveis hakneses, and he should not make it in shul. Va'afilu b'kai gavna yesh naigin l'sadra im shar brachas beveis hakneses ve'ein bevarcha beveisam. And even in this scenario, some people have the minhag to delay making the al netillas yadayim together with the rest of the berachas hashakar, and they don't make it at home. So what does the Ramah say here? The Ramah directly addresses the case of the guy who washed netillas yadayim in the house and then he went to a daf yomi shiur, right? He says, "Mi shaloimid kaidim sheikanis lebeis hakneses." Somebody who's going to get up in the morning, wash netillas yadayim, and then he's going to learn before he goes to shul to daven. What does the Ramah say? The Ramah says, "Yavarcha beveisai." He should make the bracha in his house. V'lo yavarach bebeis hakneses. He should not delay the bracha until he goes to shul to daven. I think, based on looking at what the Ramah writes in the Darkei Moshe on the Torah, among other things, I think the Ramah is taking the side of the Bnei Svarad, and he's saying, don't delay making the al netillas yadayim if you don't have to. Like the Mishnah Berurah said in Ois Kat Neches, if you know you're going to have a delay between the washing of al netillas yadayim and when you go to daven, don't wait to make the al netillas yadayim, because it's inappropriate to have a lengthy delay between the kiyam ha-mitzvah and the making the bracha on the mitzvah. But again, the Chai Adam's concern still exists. And the way the Chai Adam gets away from this Ramah is because, again, the Ramah is talking about somebody who's going to wash the netillas yadayim. He's going to use the facilities in the morning. He's going to wash the netillas yadayim. Then he's going to learn daf yomi. And then immediately he's going to daven. And he's not going to use the facilities again between the original washing that he did when he got up in the morning and when he went to daven. In that perfect scenario, in that perfect world, the Ramah rules, like the Anshe Sfarad, that we are more concerned with bringing the bracha of al netillas yadayim together with the maisa of al netillas yadayim. But in the Chai Adam's imperfect world, and I think on a practical level, what most of us experience, if you know, or if you have very strong reason to believe, that if you're going to get up in the morning, use the facilities, wash the netillas yadayim, then go to the daf yomi shiur, and you know that you're not going to daven for another hour and a half, and you know that the chances are very good that you're going to have to wash the netillas yadayim again, then the Ramah would agree like the Chai Adam. Better don't make the bracha of al netillas yadayim first thing in the morning. You're making a delay between the ma'aseh and the mitzvah and the bracha. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because you're going to wash a second netillas yadayim after you use the facilities for a second time right before davening. And that's the netillas yadayim that you're going to make the bracha of Asher Kedushanim B'mitzvahs of the Tzivanu al netillas yadayim on the second washing, according to the Rush. So again, it's complex, and we're almost out of time. So unfortunately, we're going to have to. The next chair I think should be a relatively short one. So we're going to fall a little bit behind the 8 ball. But I'm trying to turn something which is complex into something that we could recognize. So I'm going to give now a 2-3 minute just summation. Here is the question. Everybody agrees you get up in the morning, you're supposed to wash the netillas yadayim right away. Let's remember there's a very powerful reason why you have to wash right away, because you need the ruach ra off your hands. So everybody agrees you get up in the morning, you wash the netillas yadayim right away. When should you make the bracha? If you need to use the facilities, you can't make the bracha until after you use the facilities. So fine, you wash the netillas yadayim, you use the facilities, you wash a second time because now you just used the facilities. Should you make the bracha of al netillas yadayim now or not? Everybody seems to agree that the best thing would be to make the bracha of al netillas yadayim as close to the washing of al netillas yadayim as possible. We have here brought down in the Mechaber two distinct minhagim. We have one minig, which is the minig Ashkenaz, one minig, which is the minig Anshe Sfarad. Let's assume that you got up in the morning, you washed netillas yadayim, now you're getting dressed, you're going to shul to daven. Okay, the minig Ashkenaz suggests don't make the bracha until you get to shul. Why? Because there's a concern there might be some people in shul, they might need you to be mitzi them in the bracha. The minig Anshe Sfarad, no, don't delay. Make the bracha of al netillas yadayim at home, in your house, right when you washed netillas yadayim. Mishnah Berurah is Katan Ches. Mishnah Berurah is Katan Ches said, realize that even this minig Ashkenaz that says delay until you get to shul, that's only if it's going to be a short delay. But to make a long delay, even the minig Ashkenaz does not want you to make a long delay. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Ches, if you're going to get up and you're going to learn for a half hour before you go to shul to daven, then even according to the minig Ashkenaz, you should make the bracha right when you wash the netillas yadayim at home. Because it's inappropriate to have a long delay between the washing of al netillas yadayim and the bracha of al netillas yadayim. Then came along the Mishnah Berurah Nice Katan Tes. The Mishnah Berurah Nice Katan Tes brings up the concern of the Chai Adam. The concern of the Chai Adam is most people, if they get up in the morning, wash the netillas yadayim, use the facilities, and then they're going to have a delay of, let's say, an hour and 15 minutes before they go to daven, most people are going to run into a problem. What is that problem? That problem, very succinctly put, is, according to the Rush, the reason you are washing the netillas yadayim is because your hands are unclean, and you need to wash the netillas yadayim in preparation for Kriya Shema and Tefillah. Says the Chai Adam, if you know you're going to have an hour and a half delay between you when you washed on the netillas yadayim and when you daven, there's a great concern. How could you make a bracha of al netillas yadayim on that first hand washing that you did when you woke up, if it's very possible that you're going to have to wash your hands again an hour and a half later before you daven? If that happens, then the first washing that you did was not a valid netillas yadayim according to the Rush, because that netillas yadayim did not prepare you for Kriya Shema and davening. Why? Because you made your hands unclean again before you went to daven when you used the facilities the second time. So says the Chai Adam, if you know there's going to be a great delay between when you washed on the netillas yadayim in the morning and when you're actually davening, you're putting yourself at risk for a bracha of HaTorah according to the Rush. Therefore, says the Chai Adam, what should you do? If you know that you're going to get up in the morning, wash the netillas yadayim, go to a daf yomi share, have a coffee, wait an hour, and then, only then are you going to daven, don't make the al netillas yadayim right when you get up in the morning. Wait until after the daf yomi share. Go use the facilities another time right before davening. Now your hands are unclean again. Now wash the Rush's netillas yadayim and make a bracha now. Very easy eitzah. The Rashba, you washed netillas yadayim an hour and a half ago because Nasa Kibriya Chadasha, and you had an hour and a half delay until you made the bracha. No problem. You're gonna put the bracha of al netillas yadayim together with the other berachas hashachar. So it's part and parcel of thanking Hashem for everything else. You're thanking Him for Chadashim Labakam Rabba Emunasecha, and you cover the Rashba as well. That's the Chai Adam. So that would seem to be the maskana. In the end of Ois Katan Tes, the Mishnah Berurah says, if you do like the Shari Tshuva, and you do make the al netillas yadayim first thing in the morning, you're okay. If you do like the Chai Adam and you wait till after the daf yomi share, you're also okay. there's one last thought that I'll leave you with, and that is the beauty of the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says that the Chai Adam's problem is not a problem. The Aruch HaShulchan says, what's the Chai Adam afraid of? That you're going to wash the netillas yadayim in the morning, and then it could happen that before davening, you're going to need to use the Beis HaKisei, and you're going to need to wash your hands again. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, it's not a problem. When the Rosh said that Chazal wa Masakin, that you have to wash your hands right away in the morning because yadayim askani yoisheim, that takana was made on the first washing of the day. And you're always allowed to make a bracha on that first washing of the day. And if it turns out that you have to wash your hands again right before davening, that's okay. You still fulfilled the sheet of the Rosh. It's a takana that covers most scenarios. If it will happen that you have to wash your hands a second time, that's not a bracha levatala. You made a bracha on the first washing of the day. That's okay, according to the Rosh. Okay, I hope this was clear. I hope it wasn't overly complicated. I hope you got what it is that I'm trying to give out based on all of the shittas that we see over here. In any case, I did my best. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be begging against Klal Yisrael. The Rabban Shem should send Yeshua Sefor's Parnasset Tuchum Tolos in need, and we should be zeichet to see the Bias Kol Tzedek b'meher of Yameinu. Amen. Be well.